Okay, so you are here because you've watched a video, maybe you've read an article, maybe you even get my weekly emails. And in listening or reading, you've resonated with something and you find yourself wanting to learn a little bit more. So you've made your way over here. And in this short capacity catalyst workshop, we're going to go through this. We're going to dive into the mechanisms, we look at the frameworks, and I'm going to give you a way to start working on this. But before we dive into all of that, I just want to preface this by saying that there is nothing wrong with you. You do not have a personality problem. You do not lack skill. You do not lack motivation. You do not lack discipline. Everything that you are struggling with is linked to capacity. And we're going to explain why now. So you exist in two states. We have the fire. This is where you are at your best. You are fast thinking, you are clear, you are certain, you communicate well, you're magnetic, you get things done quickly, you make solid decisions. You are what we would call a high performer. You're at your best. But on the flip side, we have what we call the fade. You're tired, you're withdrawn, you start to shut down, disassociate, you tend to overthink things, you can't make a solid decision, you lack confidence, everything just slows down. You're struggling. Doesn't necessarily mean you can't still do the job and still get results, because a high performer can get results in any state, but it comes at a cost, and it's a personal cost. When we're in the fade, this tends to cascade through the different areas of our being, through our physical body, through our mental well-being, and through our emotional well-being. It has knock-on effect in all of these areas. Because we're so tired, we don't want to train or exercise or do the things that we know take care of our body and help us with our energy. We tend to make worse food choices, surviving on caffeine and not really looking after ourselves in that respect. Sleep starts to suffer, which only compounds it even more. Then, of course, we have the mental struggle, that inability to think clearly, the brain fog. We can't make fast decisions. We're not as creative. We just feel very stuck, and like our mental capacity is diminished massively, and we just can't do things to the level that we're used to doing. Then we have the emotional aspect of it. We become a lot more reactive. Patience dwindles. We become difficult to deal with, almost cold. We just don't have the ability to be as warm and as charismatic as we would normally be, and that comes across in our relationships. In the people that we care about the most, we tend to withdraw, so we're not as present. So all of this cascades across our life, and it can have real damaging effects long term. Now, most high performers, they can cope with that. They deal with it. They compensate. We start to take actions and do things that allow us to continue doing what we would normally do, continuing to perform, but it's all compensatory. And what happens is this quiet erosion. You just start to wear away on the inside. And it's more of a personal erosion than a performance erosion, for now anyway. Eventually, you'll wear away to the point where you can't even perform at all anymore. It takes a long time. And that's usually where people start to decide, actually, hang on a minute, now I need to do something about it. But if we can address it earlier on, then it doesn't even need to get to that point. So what's the link? Capacity. Capacity is the link, okay, between the fire and the fade. The only difference between you when you're in the fire versus you when you're in the fade is your capacity, the state of your nervous system. Okay, that is what capacity is. It's a nervous system state. So generally there are three. We have ventral vagal, we have sympathetic, and we have dorsal vagal. Now, of course, we could go a lot deeper, we could go more scientific, but we're not going to do that because you don't need to know that. You just need to understand the basic functions of this. Ventral vagal is where we're in the fire. We're at our best. We're functioning well. We have high capacity. Sympathetic is where we're in that fight or flight mode, but we can still get shit done. But it's those compensation mechanisms. We're not eating, we're not sleeping, but we're pounding caffeine and we're still getting work done. We're having to work a lot harder, and things that would usually come easy to us when we're in the fire are a lot more difficult, but we can still produce results. But it's all through compensation, and it adds to the slow erosion that we're experiencing. And then we have the dorsal vagal. This is where we're in the fade. This is the shutdown. Okay, you spend enough time in the sympathetic, eventually you end up in this dorsal vagal shutdown. It's where we freeze. It's where we fade. So how can we close the gap? How can we stop oscillating between these three states and spend more time in the fire, more time at our best? Because that's our baseline ultimately. That's us. That's our true self. These two other states, the compensation and the fade, they're not really us. They're just a result of having low capacity within our nervous system. So how do we close the gap? First thing we need to do is you need to know your starting point. So underneath this video, there is a button, and that will take you to a GPT that I have trained to identify your current capacity state, your nervous system load. And what that will do is ask you a series of questions, and it will come up with a capacity score for you. That will give you an incredible level of detail around where you're at now, what your current starting point is. Some people may be just dipping into the fade. They've not really been there before. They're dipping into it and they don't like it. They want to be back to the fire. Some people have been stuck there forever and they can't get out. It's going to be different nervous system loads, different scores depending on you and your current situation, and that will give you that. So I highly recommend that you go and do that now. Then when you've done it, come back and watch video 2, because we will go into the mechanisms and the frameworks and everything you need to know in order to close the gap. So go ahead now, do your capacity score, and then come back for video 2.